This is the Dave LewAllen Podcast, sponsored by Shurms Candy, a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome-tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan. And welcome back to the Dave LewAllen Podcast. We cover sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers in our community. We have moved into Season 2. This is Episode 31 of the Dave LewAllen Podcast, and I'm thrilled today to have Darren McCarty, the former grind liner with the Red Wings, 4 Stanley Cups, and a colorful and interesting career post-hockey, to say the least, and he is here to talk about all of that and also the Shoresy Fall Classic that is going to be at Little Caesars Arena. I almost said Joe Louis Arena.
I do it all the time.
Little Caesars Arena on Monday, November 11th. We're going to get into that and so much more. Darren, thank you. It's great to be here.
Lou, always a pleasure to see you, bud. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. We go back a ways. And great to catch up today in this format where we can have a conversation. This Shoresy Classic at Little Caesars Arena, it'll be the Red Wings alumni team playing against the Shoresy cast. For those who don't know what Shoresy is, it's a Canadian hockey-themed show. It's colorful, to say the least. Foul language, a little raunchy, maybe a lot raunchy, but great entertainment. And
it's the Canadian hockey version of Trailer Park Boys, and it started with Letterkenny, if anybody's sure of it. And this is the offset Shoresy, which is the hockey team, and their their head player, who's a pain in the rear end. He reminds me of Sean Avery. More or less, that we used to play with teammate. Love Sean Avery. But it's such an honor. So not only this is cultural, but the way to tie it in. So this team, which is in the fictional team out of Sudbury, they got a bunch of good players, and they're traveling around playing all the different alumni. What I'm honored about is that we're doing it on November 11th, which, if you see on my wrist here, and if you know anything about my journey, will be my 9 years sobriety. So I figured the boys were just coming in to have a party for me. This is all about DMAC, but I know so many people that are excited about this. We do a lot of alumni stuff, but this one is definitely going to be special. So anybody who hasn't or has Monday, the 11th available, come on down to LCA. It's going to be a party.
Well, and this group of guys, the Shoresy guys, are playing in Buffalo and Boston and Toronto.
They're taking it all around.
Yeah, which is incredible. And I mean, they're characters, obviously, characters on the TV show, but characters.
Well, I told everybody stay out of my way because this is an audition. All right, for DMAC. I will be auditioning out there. Please do not get in my space. This is about me. This is my time. I'm going to have them leaving going, we don't know what it is, but we got to have some of that.
Yeah, well, and you'd be perfect for it, frankly.
I actually, you know what, and to anybody else, and obviously growing up in Leamington, Ontario and Canada or whatever, the references are spot on.
Oh, yeah.
I know we all growing up know Squirrely Dan's and the Dairies and all the different guys and all the hockey boys. So I'm excited because the chirping, right? We say the game's changed, Dave. On the ice, the game has changed. But you know what? The psychological battlefield is often between the benches. I always sat closest to the other team's benches because that's where all the action is and all the conversations. So I can't wait to be a part of that.
There'll be some chirping.
There'll be some chirping for sure.
All right, so that's November 11th. Tickets available. It promises to be an incredible evening on the ice. Now, a bunch of your teammates will be playing with you, and former teammates on the alumni team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're getting big Darian Hatcher to come out and play. And, Dino Cicerelli, Joey Kosher, Danny DeKaiser, Drew Miller, Kevin Miller. I mean, you might get all 27 Millers out of there. I know Abby's coming, Justin Ablocator, Eddie Mio is going to be there, Johnny Ogrodnik, Larry Murphy. We're putting a team together. We're putting a squad together. So Ian White, actually, Whitey's coming into play. So we always like when we get the fresh, younger blood in there. It's always happening. So I'm sure it'll be entertaining, but it should come for a good game.
Yeah. And you're active in the alumni. You guys play a lot of games, and you play the games to benefit causes and organizations across Southeast Michigan, but the state of Michigan and beyond, really.
Absolutely. I have a couple things. One of the questions I get all the time is, DMAC, do you do beer leagues or play, in games? And I said, listen, there's no men's league or beer league that has a salary cap for Darren McCarty, but I'll do anything for charity. So the alumni gets me for about 10 a year. And I don't know when this is airing, but if so, one of the great things that we do, especially the 15th, so after the 11th, so the 11th we're playing the Shoresy game, the 15th in St. Clair Shores for the Guardian Angel Service Dogs, Steve Carlton from the infamous Hanson Brothers Slapshot movie will be there. Joey Kosher and I are going to petition to be on a line with him, so it should be fun. So to your point, we're always out and about doing a lot of different stuff and trying to be involved in the communities. And let me just say this right now, too, because there's been a little bit of a change. Joey Kosher's been our president for the past, and now that Danny DeKaiser and Drew Miller are in retirement and stuff, they've taken over the responsibilities of president and vice president of the alumni. And what we hope is just starting conversations about different communities throughout this whole state. I travel this whole state doing my comedy tour in the band and now the Cannabis brand and stuff like this. But how can we be a positive influence in your community and bring in more of the alumni guys and just trying to figure out what the win-wins are. So if anybody watching this that wants to have that conversation, we're always up and about to do those things.
Yeah, and that's great, the way you guys give back after what you gave on the ice, during your playing careers. That's a terrific thing. We're going to talk more about the playing career and life after hockey. But at this time, I want to welcome our new sponsor, our first sponsor to the Dave LewAllen Podcast. It is Shurms Candy, a Michigan-based company. Thrilled to have them on board and joining with us as we bring you sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers.
Let me help you out here, Davey Lou, because I did have these. Thank you. By the way, as the kids would say, Shurms are fire. They're fire. Get yourself some today.
There you go. Appreciate that. Shurms Candy is a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan. Products include Misha Gummies, chocolate Misha Gummies, sour Misha Gummies, Mishy Cinnamons, and the brand new strawberry-flavored Mishy Minis. You can find Shurms Candy in many fine retailers around the state or online at shurmscandy.com. And they have Darren McCarty's approval as well.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the career. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Leamington largely.
Yep.
Short distance from Joe Louis Arena, where you wound up playing the majority of your NHL career and winning 4 Stanley Cups. I don't know, as a kid, did you envision Red Wings in your life?
I envisioned exactly what I did. I am one of the people that said that I will argue, because I am living proof that I put my mind to something and would not be denied, no matter what priorities. So since I was 8 years old, I wanted to be an NHL hockey player. And if I had my choice, it was since 1983 when Steve Yzerman came into this team that I always, we stunk. And even through the 70s, late 70s, yeah. I mean, I remember, so Leamington, where I grew up in, give or take 10 minutes for the U.S.-Canada border, my house was 40 minutes to Joe Louis Arena. So I'd even gone to Olympia when I was 5 years old, because Kirk Bowman, who was from my hometown, played for the Chicago Blackhawks. So, I mean, I'd always been around. I've been to more Tiger Stadium games. So I was a huge Detroit sports fan. Unfortunately, the Red Wings sucked, even worse than they even sucked in the past. But we were tough. We could beat people up. Then when Steve Eisman came and eventually the Bruce brothers and Proby and Joey, I was always like, they need somebody just to, like, they're tough and they can fight all the tough guys, but they need somebody, we call them the rats, right? They need somebody to take all those pests away. And I knew, like, the role that I played, that there was that spot on this team that's for somebody to do that. And that was always, like, whether it was realistic or wasn't, to me it was. And I was going to do that. And then, so when things start to fall into place is when I get drafted, right? Like, until you don't know. But when you get drafted, there's like this... when I was drafted in 92, second round in Montreal, and you'll love this because the beauty, I was 19 at the time, and in Canada, the drinking age is 19. So I had my Detroit Red Wing jersey all through the bars in Montreal and stuff like that, not giving it was the greatest day ever, right? I was proud, but I knew that how I played. Now, the biggest knock on me was always my skating, but I always worked on it. And if you told me what it took to get to whatever, I was going to do it no matter what. And every summer and every year, I mean, the stories about me going to Sweden and power skating, Laura Stam, all over Connecticut to West Coast to whatever it was, because I was going to do whatever it took. And the minute that I thought I could get my skating up to par, the physicality, but also too, I knew I had the talent level just to be a cog in the wheel.
And right. you
play my role that I did. I'm no good. It's not a benefit when I'm your toughest guy. It's a benefit when I'm your second toughest guy, right? When I'm your second toughest guy, hence when Proby was around my first year, or when Joey came back around for those cup years, whatever. When I'm your second toughest guy and I can handle business and I can play and I can handle the guys that can play, right? It's a whole different level. Yeah. And then it's also too, you look at where you're in the situation with the guys that I was in, and specifically talking about Drapes and Maltz and Marty Lapointe and Dandy and Ozzy and whatever sort of nurtured and groomed through whatever else to what the grind line would be to how do you become, like, I don't know, for me, and I don't speak for those guys, one of my most proud things is you got a name. You're on the name of a line that anybody says who it is. If it comes up in a trivia question, right. Might be guessed, right? Like, and I know that I'm one of the ones that you remember on this line. Yeah. No, that's like dude. To me, that's like the production line, even the Russian Five or stuff like that. So I mean, we're all right.
Yeah, you are.
But and especially here, because at the end of the day, it's about what Detroit, Michigan's about, and it's at the end of the day, it's about work. And it's about doing the things that suck, and that's what we did. So
well, and you did that from an early age, as you said, because of your desire. But you told me about a junior coach who really drove that home for you of what it would take, to be able to realize those dreams.
See, there's also too this where your self-awareness, and I don't realize it, but I was hardened at a young age because I was always told why I couldn't, and that pissed me off. Because it was like, you're not telling me what I can do and what I can't do. And it motivated me harder. So then when the biggest decision when I was like 15, turning 16, is to let me go play junior hockey for the guy who had the most influence in my being the player that I am, and Brian Drum, who was my junior B coach in Peterborough. And he'd played in the minors, but he told me, he said, if you want to be an NHL player, you have to do something 99.9% better than everybody else. And for you, it's got to be physical. And for me, I was like, okay, show me. What do I got to do? And it was the same. If you look at, it's an easy track record for the game, my game back in the day, first year, any level, all you do is fight and hit and play physical. You work on your skills and practice, work on getting better. You use that same... it's very simple. Same military spec, no matter where you go. So my first year in Junior A in Belleville, I had a ton of fights, had 12 goals. It gets you space, it gets you reputation. Next year I had 30, and the final year I had 55.
55 goals.
55 goals my final. Hey guys, Kirk Maltby, left winger on the grind line, he had 50. DMAC at 55. Just facts. We're big into facts over here.
Yeah.
So make sure you tell Maltz you had a good last year junior.
All right, so then you're drafted by the Wings, second round, number 46 overall. You spend a year at Adirondack, the team's American Hockey League franchise at the time. You had like
45 majors. 278 penalty minutes. 45 majors, no 10.
So same thing applied there,
and 19 goals.
Right, but I'm going to
Fight
show you.
Everybody. And it was easy. Like I said, how about being the 7th toughest guy in your team? How easy is that, right?
Yeah.
It used to be, I was a young guy, and I'd go out, whatever, and I'd have guys like Kirk Tomlinson, Dennis Vial, Jim Cummins just screaming at that guy, don't hurt the kid, don't hurt the kid. You know, that gives you a lot of confidence, too.
Yeah.
So I think more so that year was just because you go from playing against boys to playing against men, and can you handle the man's game? Can you handle fighting a man instead of fighting a boy? Right, so.
But it was only 1 year then, the American Hockey League, and then you make the Wings out of training camp.
Well, it was the
next
perfect
year.
storm, because what had happened is the Wings lost the year before in the first round to Toronto. So there was changes made, and then Scotty Bowman was hired. And then for me, if you want to say what made me the Detroit Red Wings, was a exhibition game in Chicago, old Chicago Stadium, where there was melee in the corner, and Cam Russell, their defenseman, came flying in, and I tuned him up pretty good, and he was on the bottom of the pile, and he goes, you jumped me. And I was like, I didn't jump you, but if you want to go again, let's go. So just because that's what we did in junior. I mean, so we squared off, and it was like Rocky. If you go back and watch it, it was like Rocky Balboa, Apollo Creed. He smokes me, cuts me for like 5. I hit him on the butt, and I drop him. I keep picking him up and bambying him like this. And I'm sure Scotty at the time was on the bench looking, going, I don't know what I'm going to do with this kid, but I need this kid on my team. So it was that.
So when
that was my only goal in life, right? And you look back and you see along the way what you would change, right? Just so you wouldn't have to suffer in certain ways when you're older. But I wouldn't change anything in how I had to, like, I knew who DMAC, the hockey player, was 100,000,000%. Had no clue who Darren was. When I was younger, at that time, it was 24/7 DMAC. If I had to be that, I had to always be that. And that was, for me, my biggest struggle. I always tell everybody, hey, I knew who DMAC was when I was 6 years old. I didn't meet Darren until I was 46. Right? You know, so, and thank God because of that, because this guy isn't that guy. Yeah. But this guy loves that guy because that guy, right? But a lot of explanations, but I wouldn't do it any other way.
So when you were told after that training camp, like, you're on the team, tell me, how did that happen?
Well, because you're in a hotel, and then and the biggest thing is, like, first is they tell you to get out of place, go get an apartment. And so I remember because a couple guys, Mike Avazoff, who actually had got claimed on waivers during that training camp or whatever, but Mike Sillinger, who I played with them in Adirondack, they sort of took me under their wing, but I moved into next door to Mike Sillinger in Novi. He was here my first year and stuff, and that sort of like started the process. So 9 Mile and Haggerty's were my first apartment that I lived back in '93.
But to be given that word, I mean, what you must have felt inside, like, hey, this is what I dreamed about, right? The opportunity to play in the NHL.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if it had probably hit me sort of at that time, because I think it was, I don't know if it was, had played in Dallas first game or played at home. I don't know if you go back, I'd have to ask if we moved into the apartment before the season started or whatever, but I knew I was on the right path, and I knew I wasn't going back, and I knew that this was my opportunity, and I had to bring something that I always knew since I was a kid that this team needed.
Yeah. Well, and you brought it. And look at the success that followed over time. with the Cups in 97 and 98 and 2002. And then you were back for 2008, which we'll get into as well. But to experience all of that winning and those Stanley Cup championships with those group of guys, man, that's the pinnacle.
Well, we carry it to this day.
Yeah.
And we all remember and I think it was before like the first like game 4 or whatever, and we were just talking, and you know how Steve Eiserman is we call him E.F. Hutton, and anybody who doesn't know the E.F. Hutton reference, back in the day, used to be a commercial that said, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
Yeah.
Well, that was Steve Eiserman, because he was all actions, but unless he was chirping you, like you be around, like, I mean, God dang, stay away from that. But what we were able to do, and I remember, and I'm paraphrasing, but something like, we can accomplish something that we will carry for the rest of our lives together, no matter where we go, no matter what it is, and always have that. And I say this, and this is going back 97, so this is 27 years ago, coming on it to this day.
Yeah.
It's no thing that are true. When we get together, right, so we have a chat thread and whatever, and everybody's like busting balls and whenever it comes around and like that. But when we all get together in the room, the vice president, GM, no, it's Captain Steve. It's not President Shanahan. Yeah. It's Shanny. You know, if it was Uncle Kenny's back, and Ozzy's not the sports FanDuel dude. He's friggin' Ozzy, and you better watch your back, because he's gonna try to do something. You know, Maltz is messing around. Like, that is the greatest thing. And with everybody that's doing everything, but when we get around together, even in having a conversation, if Steve gives me time of day, or no, just kidding. But if I come past, and he genuinely, it's the same as it used to be, as far as we care about each other. And we want to know how the kids and stuff, you know, like the biggest joke now is I can't call Drape's old man anymore because I'm the first grandfather.
Congratulations on that.
So shout out grandson Ryder, Jeffrey, who is born in December. He'll be a year, December 15th. And we got a baby girl, Josie Lynn, my daughter Nichelle.
Fantastic.
So we're into that stage now.
Grandpa McCarty.
I know. Papa D. There it is.
I love it. Take me back to you were gone and then came back.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little foggy on some of that.
So when the lockout happened after the 04 season.
Because it was IHL, then AHL, then finally.
Well, but when you have to go back to, so after we lost in 03-04 season, and they canceled the whole NHL season, which cost me $2.5 million or whatever, like, 'cause I was in the middle of the biggest contract. But I also, so the salary, went from no salary cap, where we had 60-some million, to under 40.
Right.
I was a casualty of that, along with Ray Whitney and Darian Hatcher.
Yeah,
whatever.
they bought you
but
out.
I didn't do myself. The game had stopped being fun for me. It was all more of a job. It was business. So the one thing about me, and yes, maybe the priorities weren't in the right order, but the one thing about Darren McCarty, and I did third person myself, is the fact that I follow my passion.
Yeah.
Right. Hockey is what I did. It's not who I am. I have so many other things, and I guess back then I just didn't know how to embrace that in the proper way. So when it came down to like being bought out and stuff like this, it was heartbreaking. It was something that I didn't want to play anywhere other than here. I always consider myself, to this day, Detroit's favorite stepson. Yeah. Right? But it had to happen. And I know that I was responsible for it, right? So I can accept my part of the responsibility. I was fortunate and it's funny because I don't know if many people, the first team come calling was Colorado. And I said no. They did. The first team that come calling was Colorado, and I said nope. Because
that fits, and that's right that you would say no.
Well, it fits and it fits. It's on brand on both parts, right? And I appreciate it, and that goes as I'm sitting here older, I really appreciate that more because it's a respect of how I was looked on, and so that means even more to what they thought of me as a teammate and a player. So, but I wanted to play for Daryl Sutter in Calgary, and I want to play with Jerome McGinley, and I want to play with those young guys, and I thought that I could actually help make a difference in there. And it's unfortunate because we had it was a sandbox line because that was Stefan Yell, who had battled against Colorado, was my centerman, and Marcus Nielsen was my winger, and we had a grind line light. Right, it wasn't drapes and malts or whatever, but it was our check-in line, and we were effective. We lost in 7 games to Anaheim and went on to win the Cup. We should have won. We were up 3-2.
And you scored a winning goal in that series.
I did. I scored an overtime goal in that. And I would say that first year there was so much fun. It reminded me of junior again. I cannot speak highly enough of Jerome McGinley. Jerome McGinley is cut from the Steve Eisman cloth, except that if I tell you we had to ban watching UFC fight parties because him and Chuck Obaso would always start wrestling and stuff. So because he's like the active, in on it's. I had so much fun. Had the greatest Christmas party of all time. Food fight at Rhett Warner's house. Like things that bring this team together. The only thing we didn't do was win a championship. But I thank those guys because that was sort of love of the game. Now, unfortunately, through injuries and stuff, I fell back into my addiction.
Right.
But was able to reconcile that. And when I came out of that, I didn't have a contract or whatever. And I was coming back to be around and to be here for my kids and stuff like this. And it's documented that it was beginning of December. And when I came back, had lunch with Drapes, and I said to him, I said, you know what, dude, I don't know what it is, but I think I got something left, and I'm just looking for a chance. Can you help me, work out? Because he had core health, and what he said to me is what he always says. He says, bro, won't give you anything, but I'll afford you. You do the work. I'll keep opening the doors and doing whatever. And it was about me showing up, and I can get it back then because everybody questioning what's the commitment. Right. But once you know that I'm committed, that I'm all in. So I had to prove myself, and this is where, shout out to Brandon Bordeaux, who's one of the owners of the Saginaw Spirit, who is owner of the Flint Generals in the IHL, and they gave me an opportunity to go play back. I got all my ducks in a row with the league and stuff, and was able to go back on the journey. And the whole purpose, Dave, was that the motivating factor is no what ifs. No what ifs. Right. And I told Kenny Holland when he sat down, and he didn't promise me anything. He said, we'll watch. And you know what? If we think, I got to talk to this, but we'll give you an opportunity. Oh. And I said to Kenny, you know what, Kenny? You haven't won a cup since 1955 without me in the lineup. So I'll prove you right. And I went on my journey, found in the IHL and got to play again and get back into shape. And when there's certain times when you're on the right track. So I get a tryout in Grand Rapids. In the first game, they called me up at home. I score a hat trick in the home opener. I had 4 points actually, and that's when I call them my kids, like the Darren Helms and the Abbeys and the Jimmy Howards and Jacob Kindles and Jonathan Ericksons and all these guys. They're the young guys there right then, and I got to have some sort of influence and go back and prove it enough to Babs to be able to call me up. And it's unfortunate because the last game I played when I was getting called up, I got hammered and cracked a rib. So it cost me a couple of weeks at the beginning, but I was able to play 3 games to prove, because it was all a proving process. And then the whole point of me being back for the 07-08 season was just to get in the locker room, just to be around, to do Ozzy's warm-up again, to be out there, to be with the guys because they were my guys. And because of injuries to Johan Franzen and Thomas Holmstrom, I was able to play 17 out of the 22 games, even score a goal in the first round against Nashville, and got my 4th ring. So props to everybody who made it happen, and that's more of don't ever no matter how bad or whatever you think it is, it's never over.
A nice capper for sure to a incredible run as an NHL player. We'll pause a moment so we can tell you and welcome again our first sponsor to the Dave LewAllen Podcast, Shurms Candy. Shurms Candy is a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome-tasting candy that's in the shape of the state of Michigan. Products include Michigummies, chocolate Michigummies, sour Michigummies, Misha Cinnamons and the brand new strawberry-flavored Misha Minis. You can find Shurms Candy at many fine retailers across the state of Michigan. You can also order online at Shurms Candy, S-H-U-R-M-S, shurmscandy.com. Continuing our conversation with Darren McCarty on the Dave LewAllen Podcast. We touched on the career. Let's talk about life after hockey for you. I mean, you mentioned the band, Grinder, at one time. You were a pro wrestler for a period of time.
Still doing it. Still doing all. So both are still active.
Do the comedy stuff?
Still active.
All right.
All of it's active.
And you become an advocate over time for cannabis. And, of course, here in the state of Michigan now, adult recreational use of cannabis is legal in our state beyond medicinal marijuana. You are an advocate and you are involved.
I'm an advocate and a proprietor, and have the Darren McCarty brand. So anybody who knows that the Darren McCarty brand has been available at different times throughout the state, but over the past, so it was originally between 2018 and February 2022, produced by a company called Pinkana. When the contract came up, because let me backtrack a little bit. My sobriety date is 11/11/15, and without the cannabis plant and the education and the compassion of the people in Michigan to have allowed it to be medicinal to the recreational, to me, an addict who lives by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, except I have a garden in mind with education, right, where you know your endocannabinoid system. We all have one. It's how you do it. So to me, there was always a miss. I've struggled with sobriety my whole career, my whole life, and I'm one of those guys that can put 10 years behind them, can stack it up, but was always had a date. With the cannabis plant, it allowed me not only to get the physical addiction, because if you like, and I got to backtrack a little bit, because after I retired in 2009, so we won in 2008, we lose in 2009, and I hang it up for the next, from 2009 until 2015, I'm not trying to kill myself, but I was probably Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas, not trying not to. Then that's how bad alcohol had a grasp on it. It got so bad that it was like November 10th. And it was like it got to a point that I was, so imagine, I'm probably 215 pounds right now. I was 285 pounds. My organs were about to explode. I had to make a decision that was it. And through Rick Simpson oil and cannabis. So long story short, Dave, something that saved my life. You saw how I protect my teammates in a job. Imagine if something that has life effects. So the way that I gave back to it was creating my brand. Now in doing that, because just like anything else, and I understand being a celebrity and having a brand, you go through different people speculating different things about it, but I live this brand, and everybody in the state of Michigan now knows what I'm about. In saying that, I discontinued for reasons because our goals weren't aligned with Pinkana, and that was in February of 2022. So now we're in November of 2024, 2.5 years later, right? But the fact is, I know what I want, what I need, whatever. So I've had 30-some deals come across my bow until I accepted the one that I thought that our alignment was, compassion was the same, and that is with Legacy Cannabis. Now, you say legacy because everybody's familiar over in Sterling Heights with the Legacy Reptilium. Right. Yes, connected along to that story, Randy, who passed away, that had pancreatic cancer, 10% of the Legacy brand, which the Darren McCarty brand is powered by, right, goes back in to the Reptilium and pancreatic cancer research and stuff like this. The compassion and the synergies to whatever. I can't thank Steve Cato and his team at Legacy enough for finding these synergies and saying that. So after 2.5 years, November 16th, down the road at the Puff Utica, we will have Darren McCarty's new product on display. We're starting with flower and pre-rolls and we'll be getting into the edibles, getting into the tinctures, getting into the wellness. For me, it's a way of life. This plant has saved my life, so now I would just stand in front of it just like I would protecting my teammates.
How has it saved your life? Because of the addiction, the alcohol, the hold it had on you, this allows you, to put that in the past and move forward? So
not only to get, a lot of things too, right, is where the alcohol is the symptom to whatever else. So people like myself that have fought a lot of the years have spiritually and mentally been prepared to quit and want to quit, but physically, because it's a poison that you can't. What this plant is allowed to do is it more or less detoxed me into realizing how to feed my system, right? And a lot of it is pain management. For me, being an insomniac, right, it's sleep. So now the fact that I can use the plant to regulate my sleep, there's a part of the cannabinoids called CBN, which is a big part of my recovery, and also to, like a lot to understand. The first thing I ever created was a CBD hemp roll-on. Why? Because if you want to know the effects, no better way than say, hey, you hurt, my elbow's a little sore. You rub something on it and wait a few minutes and me going, hey, how's your elbow? And you go, what elbow? Yeah. And it's not like it's like, oh my God, it feels so good. It's like you forget about it. Yeah. That's your system allowing it. All I can say is the one thing is I always say, get educated, get medicated, but don't tell me what, tell me who. So the fact is that who are you getting your information from? Who are you leading the way? I'm an alcoholic insomniac, so my brand is specific to me along those lines. So so you asked me, what has it helped? It's helped as an alternative, but it's also got me in an education. And I look on it the same way as people who are vegans and people who, put different things in their body, right? Whether they eat, they drink, whatever like this. Right. This is how you can have the power over your system instead of somebody just telling you, hey, take this, hey, take that. You can figure out, keep asking questions. That's the best part. You want to go into the rabbit hole of the cannabinoids and whatever, you can keep asking questions and the information, and there's people that will help you, because if you want to find your health and wellness, that's the best part about this, right? And so. And
you said to me, the hockey is one thing, but this is Darren McCarty.
Yeah. So anybody who knows me, that this is my legacy. Like when people remember me 50, 100 years down the line, I hope they remember the things that I did.
Well, they'll never forget March 26th.
In the cannabis world, and then go, oh yeah, he's got 4 Stanley Cups and he beat up that guy that one time. Yeah. Right? But because it's more about life and health and well, and I know that it matters. I travel around this state because I love the people of this state. I love because the people of this state have allowed me to be alive. So the fact is that let them know that they're not alone, that I'm proud. When I always say, I'm a battery and you people are my power. So you just feed the power of it. And you know what? I have to do it for the ones, and it's always about, I will never forget, yes, Darren McCarty has felt hopeless, right? And I remember that, and that's the worst feeling for me ever, being an Aries, being whatever else, is to admit that I had no hope. But so I always remember to let people know that there is, and you can come from it, no matter how bad you think it is. There's always a way out.
Keep on keeping on is what I say.
You just no matter how many times you fall down, you have to get back up. And you know what? From my experience, as you get older, that's where wisdom comes in, and you'll just quit. You just quit falling. You just be like, I know how that ends. I don't want to scrape my knee today. Yeah. I don't want to break. It's like, I know how it ends. That's the difference today. The difference is, Dave, between me and DMAC 10 years ago or whatever, is I know how certain things end, and I know what the consequences, positive or negatively, are. Right. I don't lie to myself anymore about it. I don't think I can change it. I know what is what. I drink, I die. Yeah. Right? That's so to me, olives and alcohol are in the same category. Yeah. Absolutely hate them. That's the only thing I hate, by the way, is olives.
I don't like them either.
If you leave me a piece of pizza with an olive on it, March 26, 97, you'll find it.
Thanks for this. This is awesome.
Always a pleasure.
Gramps. D-Mac is a grandpa.
Hey, let me ask you, because we were talking about it before. Like he stumbled into this talk, but back in 93, my first training camp or whatever. I'm sure the hair was in the mullet form. It wasn't as colorful and whatever.
No, it wasn't.
But it doesn't throw you off as much, right? Same guy sitting here 30 years later?
Same guy.
Good.
Same guy.
That's
Absolutely.
That's all I can ask for.
Yeah. And you like a microphone today as much as you did back then.
Well, you know what? It's not about me, but I've never met a microphone I didn't like.
Darren, thanks.
Thank you, David.
Great to see you. Continue your success as a spokesperson and all the activities and the new ventures as well. Appreciate you being here today.
Always.
Darren McCarty, former Red Wing, 4-time Stanley Cup champion. And as you heard today, there's so much that's happening for him in this next chapter as well. Thrilled to have him here today on the Dave LewAllen Podcast, sponsored by Shurms Candy, a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of the state of Michigan. As always, we thank our producer, director, Josh Bowren, and to you, of course, for listening and watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Share this with friends, like it, encourage others to join us as well for great conversations like we had today with the great Darren McCarty. Until next time, stay safe, be kind.